one of the things we do in the school, and I'm going to talk now about how the basis of the school operates that I run, the Beehive, particularly a program, the Art of Stillness, is based on this kind of bridge between everyday life and spirituality, making one connect to the other so that they support each other. So we start off on a personal development level, if you like. We have 3 parts to the school. The first one is developing mindfulness, which is becoming more aware of what's going on inside myself in relation to outside. The second is formal meditation, which is really bridging to that deeper spirituality within me and all around, the transcendent. And then the third part is contemplation. So the idea is that on an everyday level, the decisions that I make can come from a deeper, richer place within myself. That I'm not just living on the surface of my life. I'm not sure what decisions to make. Should I do this? Should I do that? But this deep knowing and understanding comes into every decision in that I make during the day. So they're the 3 parts to the building blocks of the courses that we run, in a nutshell. And one leads into the other. So the mindfulness then leads into formal meditation practice, and formal meditation practice then leads in and supports contemplation. And of course, if mindfulness isn't strong enough, then you won't be able to do formal meditation very long. Something will come up and you'll just do something else. You'll say, oh, this isn't for me. And if you don't have a good solid bridge connected between your individual self and your transcendent, the sacred part of yourself, then when you're going into contemplation in your decision making, you won't have that knowing, that deep knowing in terms of making decisions, So they do support one another. One stage leads into the next. The more aware I am, obviously, in terms of mindfulness, being aware. I remember somebody saying to me recently, what do you do for a living? We were down in the pub watching some rugby. And I said, well, I'm a mindfulness teacher. And he says, well, I have no idea what mindfulness is, but I know what mindlessness is. So I think in a way it's the opposite of that. And that brings, it means we don't suffer so much in our everyday life. Because if I have this inner awareness of what's happening inside me, then instead of reacting all the time to what's going on in my day, I have an opportunity to maybe to get a bit of space and to respond. And that response, instead of reaction, is a huge difference. It makes a huge difference for people, And as always, I was looking for, in terms of my passion of linking personal development and spirituality together, I was looking for this bridge. How do I link the two together? So that spirituality isn't necessarily some pie in the sky thing, but it's actually a real embodiment of who I am, that it's very real and down to earth and normal in a way, very normal and centered. And what came for me was, well, through mindfulness practice, if I'm listening with my head, if I'm listening into what's happening in my heart and my emotions, if I'm listening into the energy, the instinctual drives that are running me in the gut, then by combining these 3 centers of listening together, it creates a 4th place, if you like, a spiritual brain or a spiritual intelligence then arises. So it's almost like the 3 parts, when you combine them, it creates something greater than the parts, the sum of the parts. This is what we call a spiritual awareness. But that doesn't come if I'm only listening in with my thoughts, or if I'm only listening to my feelings, or if I'm only listening to the instincts, fighting or flighting all the time. I don't get to access that richer intelligence, which we call a spiritual intelligence, you know. And that has a whole range of like, you know, like the mind or the heart or the gut, that has its own qualities to it as well, and it gives us information and an understanding and appreciation of life that perhaps just the brain or the heart or the gut doesn't on its own. Yeah. And what I like particularly is that it's embodied. It's embodied. So therefore, my spirituality can be embodied in a very human way and can help me with my everyday life. So if we move from mindfulness then to the formal meditation practice, on a personal development level, just to sit and breathe, to stop, to allow everything to calm down at the end of the day, or even in the morning, first thing in the morning. It's a wonderful way of anchoring and centering ourselves, to be able to anchor and center ourselves. And every time then we drift away with the thoughts or with the feelings, through formal practice, we just keep coming back again. We keep coming back, you know, and anchoring ourselves in the now, in the present moment. And what happens is, you know, over time, you know, it's like if I'm too much in the left side of my brain, I'm thinking all the time about what's happening in my day. I get caught up in the thoughts. If I'm too much in the right side of my brain, into the imagination, I fall below the thoughts into a kind of nice, fuzzy, dream-like sleep place. It's like going to sleep. But with formal meditation, as I begin to find a balance between the left and the right brain, you know, almost what happens is I rise above my thoughts. I rise above the thoughts, and I experience then something transcendent. I experience something beyond my what I consider my individual self, you know, and I'm creating this bridge between the individual self and the divine, if you want to call it the divine or the transcendent, my higher power, God, whatever language you use. We have two layers, if you like. I can practice mindfulness, formal meditation and contemplation just purely for personal development. And then as time goes on, it naturally then leads into a more spiritual context. A more spiritual context, because I'm going to start to experience things then that I would define as a spiritual context, as opposed to purely a personal development one, where personal development is just more about my individual life and me, you know, the individual me. My spirituality opens me up to others, to the world, to family, to community, and even beyond that to the divine. Yeah, but these are experiences that I have as I do the practices. And then when I start to develop that kind of quieter space within myself through formal meditation, I bring that energy into the contemplation practice. I bring that energy, that awareness, the awareness from the mindfulness, the bridge from the formal meditation into my contemplation practice. So just making decisions about, well, you know, what should I do today? You know, becomes much easier. And not just about what should I do, but on a personal development level, very much, you know, how I respond to people that I'm working with, in my relationships, in my family, the decisions that I make, how I treat people changes, because I'm coming from a much deeper centered place in myself. You know, and then as time goes on and that bridge in the formal meditation gets stronger between my individual self and the transcendent or the divine, as that gets stronger, it also changes the contemplation practice, in that there's a lot more empathy and compassion, and I begin to, you know, see that oneness in all things, And the paradox of developing the sacred inside is that you see oneness in all things, but more importantly, we value difference. we value difference even more, because we realize how beautifully unique each and every person is. Each and every person is absolutely unique, but you don't get to experience that feeling and appreciation until you've made that bridge inside. You've created that connection to the oneness, to the divine first.